Hey ladies, welcome back to my channel. So we're going to take a little departure from style and beauty today, and we're going to talk about mental health. Are you ready? Let's get this beauty started. You're probably saying, oh my gosh, mental health, so heavy, Nicole. We love beauty and style. But, I want to bring substantial topics and conversation to my channel because it's something I'm very passionate about. And I know that therapy can get a bad rap. As we're aging, this is something that I think is really important, especially since what I went through with IVF in 2015. Agree with it or don't agree with it. It was my choice and my decision. It's a very personal decision that I made back then. And I had a very rough ride for 4 years. And through that, I was very surprised that not one clinic, and I went to multiple clinics around the country, ever supported their patients with therapy. Like in their folder with all their very expensive treatments and everything that you basically had to do if you're going to go through this program, never once said, this is a really great option, or we find patients do very well if they work on the mental aspect of this journey. Never did. They were really very excited and encouraging with the cash procedures and checking out and always promoting the payment part of it, but never were they about the actual patient and how are they going to weather this incredible physical and mental storm. So from that, I really started I had a lot of fire to help women because of what I went through. I've always been, as I've told you on other videos, buying self-help books since high school. I found them fascinating. I always wanted to learn. How do I get better? How do I control my thoughts? All these different things. I like it because I always want to be working on myself and getting better. And how can I do things different? Or how can I see them differently? That's interesting to me. So when it was my last transfer, and this is my 7th baby that I was transferring, it was PGS tested, so it was normal. Listen, it doesn't even matter because I had started seeing on the boards girls with normal embryos transferred and not working. And it really shocked me. I'm like, oh my gosh, that can happen. So then I thought to myself, wow, I really need to prepare. This is not a for sure thing. You're so warped in this world and pumped with so many hormones. So I said to my husband, I said, you know what? I would like you to find a therapist. I felt better with him finding someone, took the pressure off of me having to make another decision at the time. I said, I really would like you to find us somebody so we can prepare mentally if this doesn't work. Hopefully it will, but our track record is not very good. So I want to really work with somebody so we're set up mentally to be successful. I don't want to crumble. I don't want my world to fall apart because I have dedicated 4 years of doing this to my body and my mind, and it's been such a roller coaster. So that's really where I started to put a lot of emphasis on mental health because I could see really what was going on and how I had to work through this whole kind of experience that I was not expecting and how devastating it is and how much loss you have. And then you compare yourself to everyone. I mean, if you've never gone through something like that where your body's not doing what it's supposed to naturally or what you're expecting it to do, it's very hard to explain that to another woman because a lot of women can't relate. Right? Because they easily got pregnant and they had 4 kids or, they didn't have any problems and it seems so foreign to them. So it's a very hard thing as a woman trying to connect with other women too, because no one really understands it. They want to, but still it's different. It's just, you really connect with other women that have struggled and can understand. And it's kind of almost like a whole grouping of women that can really support you in that sense. Not to say that women that haven't gone through it can't support you. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that this is where you feel a little bit more comfortable because someone else has really struggled in the same way you have. So that's really where I got the whole desire to seek out mental health. And I think as we're aging, it is so important. And I feel that we shouldn't feel bad if we are aging and we're depressed, or we're aging and we don't feel like we think we should be feeling and what have you. And I think that talk therapy on an app is really great. A self-help book, you don't have to go and actually see somebody. But I was reading this article from Oprah Daily, and you have to be subscribed to her magazine or on this app or what have you to be able to get it. So I thought it'd be nice to share it with you. Maybe you haven't seen this article or you don't have access to it. So it's basically women all over the country telling you what their therapist said and how it changed their life. It's basically one little sentence. So we're going to just go through those. I also wanted to say that I think it's important to really check in with yourself, especially with social media and what's going on now with AI. I think it's a little over the top for me. And, this is my job. And I feel that mentally I have to make boundaries when it comes to social media and really zone in on what I really want to see, whether it's fashion or beauty or whatever else. But it's not what I am being fed through an algorithm, from tornadoes constantly to weather stuff to triggering things to people finding things in the sky and telling you that there's something happening. I don't know. To me, it gets not even a little. It gets very overwhelming and it really kind of freaks me out. And I don't feel I'm in a good mental space when all I see is the same thing, or people filming people that should be helping and not just filming. There's so many emotions that goes on that I think it's really unhealthy, at least for me. So I have to really curate what I see. And I have on my apps, I have a time limit. So once it times out, it will go dark. My husband saw it the other day. It came up and he's like, "Do you have timers on your apps?" I said, "Oh, absolutely. I do." Because that means I have to shut off. I only get this much time a day. And then that's it. Because I will not go down that slippery slope of whatever all of this chaos is. I don't want to. And this is one of the points that comes up. So we're going to start with number 1. This says here, this is a really great sentence or advice, is when you don't know what to do nothing. So it's talking about, instead of instantaneously responding or reacting to something, take a beat, think about it, process it, then react. So this is a very hard thing, I think, in our society because everything's so instant, so fast. So I have to do this, I have to react. If you take a step back and you actually think about what's going on, it's going to be a better response than if you initially just reacted right away. I really loved this one. And number 2, you get to choose the type of relationship you have with fill in the blank. So you get to choose the kind of relationship you have with your husband, your friend, your coworker, your neighbor. If you don't like what's going on, or maybe it's not the popular decision, but you're making the decision on how you want this relationship to be, I think you put yourself back in the driver's position and being in control. If you don't like the way something's going, you can change that. You have the power to change and direct however you want your relationship to look like and to be. The third advice was get out and walk. So this woman that wrote in said that when she would go to see her therapist wanted her to walk to the therapy appointment, which was about 15 to 20 minute walk. And then she would walk home. So on the way there, walking, she was thinking about everything she wanted to talk to her therapist about. So she had more clarity. She knew what she was going to say and what she wanted to talk about. Then after the therapy session, she would walk home. So she had time to process it and to think. And this is a really important, I think, kind of takeaway, is that I have said when I'm working out, I feel like my brain is just like free. Like I have the most creative ideas. I have the best things that I think about. I can manifest certain things or focus in on things that I want to have happen, but I'm in the zone. So that's another reason why, as we're aging and things are changing, working out, whether you're walking, whether you're doing meditation, whatever it is, this is such a great mental activity because you're strengthening your mental muscle, if you will. You're thinking about things. You're allowing your mind to just wander and process things. And I could totally relate to this advice. Number 4 is the best. I do this all the time. And I would love to know in the comments if you do this also. And I'm going to read you what she said. The advice was, and what was the crime? This woman, Pilar, she's 53. She says, I do a fair amount of Monday morning quarterbacking, telling myself, I should have done this, not that, and then beating myself up. And my therapist would say this in her lovely English accent, and I realized there really was no catastrophe. So I've done that so many times where, you might have gone to a party or you might have run into somebody or there might have been a certain circumstance and you're like, oh no, should I have said that? Or I shouldn't have said that. Or maybe she took it the wrong way, or maybe I should call it. I mean, you do this whole thing over and over again instead of just saying, wait, really, was there any major issue with this? No, just release it, move on. Don't keep kind of processing over and over and making yourself crazy. That's where the stress comes, right? So there is no catastrophe. You're making something bigger than it is. Just let it go. Number 5, I'm just too tired. So I hear this a lot because my husband and I have been working on so many really life-changing projects. And oh my gosh, I'm too tired is such a trigger. So it's funny that most of the times you're really not completely wiped out. It is an excuse. Like, oh, I'm too tired to do that. I'm too tired to exercise. Or you just don't really want to. So basically you have to really regroup and say, sometimes you really are exhausted and you need to take a step back and to relax and kind of regroup. But most of the time you're not that wiped out. So just go out and do whatever it is. Be out there. Be part of things and see what that brings. So trying to not take yourself out mentally and say, no, I'm too tired or I don't want to. Just get out there. Just do it and stop making the excuse that you're too tired when you know you're really not. The sixth advice is so good. And I just touched on it a little bit. It says, don't get on the roller coaster, but always be waiting for them on the platform. So that's how I feel with social media. I have gone on the roller coaster where I have gone and I have gotten so involved in people's stories and whatever they're feeding me on this For You page. And my husband would come in, he's like, are you crying again? I'm like, oh my gosh, have you heard this woman's story? Or, what happened to her? I mean, it has gotten really bad. So I have decided because of that, I will not get on the roller coaster. I will always stay on the platform with my boundaries, with how much time I spend, with what kind of content I actually consume and allow my eyes and my brain to actually see and process. I mean, this is very important, especially since now it's getting into a little bit of a very gray area in my mind with AI and what's happening. I won't go on that roller coaster anymore because it doesn't feel good to me. And I don't feel that I need to do that. So I'll always be on the platform with my feet grounded and really ingesting content that I feel is positive or reading a book or doing other things besides that. The seventh advice here is actually a really good one too. It says, okay, but at what cost to you? So this woman was talking about, her name's Jeannie. She's 52. She was talking about that this is what my longtime therapist, Ruth, asked when I tell her I've taken on too much or I'm tolerating something difficult because it's easier than confronting someone or admitting that I'm diminishing myself. It instantly recenters me. I picture myself as the dot in Google Maps and reminds me that my emotions and energy are worth protecting. So is this not the best one for all of us? For thinking that we are the little pin on the Google map. At what cost to you? Taking on all of this, taking on all of these things that you don't need to do. And we do that all the time. So I really loved her therapist's advice about what's the cost to you? You have to really think about that before you say yes to X, Y, and Z, or whatever it is, because you need to protect yourself and your energy so you can show up for yourself. The next piece of advice is so good, and I know that all of us have done this. So it says, not my circus, not my monkeys. So this woman, Karen, she's 47, she said, my life coach gave me this advice. I was learning to say no to people, but some didn't accept it. How many times has that happened to us where you're like, I'm going to create boundaries now. I'm going to be saying no. I'm not going to always be saying yes. I won't feel guilty about it. And then no one's listening. And you're like, wait a second. Is this really happening? They would give me a whole backstory and reasons I should change my answer to yes. So this is where you almost fold because you're feeling guilty and you're like, well, maybe I should be saying yes. Okay, well, then you put yourself in position number 2 and you put them into position number 1. And then now you're doing something that you don't want, which goes back to the advice of at what cost to you, right? So it says, this quote reminds me that I can't change anyone's reaction to my responses to things, but I can stick to my responses. I think this is such a great one for women that are always saying yes, 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 yes to everything to make people happy. And you don't want confrontation. You don't want people to feel bad. You want to be liked. But then again, you're not putting yourself in that driver's position. You're putting everyone else, and then what's left for you? So I think this was such a great one. The 9th bit of advice is when you have a book, you'll never be lonely. And this is so true. When you have a book that you can get involved in, you can escape, you can learn something from, you can feel like you're almost a character in the book. You'll never be lonely. And I recently got really wrapped up into a book called Wild Company. It was so good. I really highly recommend reading it. It's the untold story of Banana Republic. So the husband and wife wrote this book. He was a journalist at the San Francisco Chronicle. She was an illustrator at the same newspaper, and just really quite incredible. It was really, I was just So thrilled to read it. My next piece of advice that comes from a therapist says, aren't you curious about what is around the corner for you? So this comes from Catherine. She's 57. It says, I had just experienced a serious traumatic event and was contemplating suicide. I still turn to this thought in the dark times. So this was a quote I know that Coco Chanel said. I've been reading her books and I couldn't find it, but she says something along the lines of, something wonderful is just right around the corner. So that is something to really think about and be hopeful for. When you have those dark days and you feel like nothing's going right, something wonderful is right around the corner. And I just implemented an app. I don't know how I found it. I don't know how I find most of the stuff that I find, but I'm always happy I do. There's an app called I Am, and it will send me prompts throughout the day. And they're positive prompts. And I am not a person that loves a lot of notifications on my phone, but I love this one. So it's not like a Zoom call. It's not my calendar, my Outlook calendar. It's not a text message. It's something positive that really enhances my day. And I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to give you an example of what they kind of send through to you. So you can like them. You can create a collection. I just think for me, it's really helped me through the projects that I've been working on. So this one says, I am breathing deeply and getting through this. So then I'll get another one maybe 2 hours later, 3 hours later. As I make this new beginning, I'm committed to becoming the best version of myself. For me, these are really wonderful. It's nice because it's positive. And I find it to be very hard to get a lot of positivity off the phone because of so many different things going on. So that is one thing that I always turn to, is thinking that there's something amazing around the corner, adding in prompts that really keep me on track, and just focusing on something that is positive and not what I'm really sitting with. And my last one I think is really wonderful because I think we can all relate. It says, we all have something from our childhood that we had zero control over. So this woman, Brenda, she's 59, she wrote in that she said, you couldn't control anyone's behavior, what they said or how they acted. What you do have control over as an adult is how you allow it to affect the rest of your life, how you act and react to things. This changed my whole way of thinking and allowed me to be in control of my life. That's one thing that's a really great takeaway, that you can't control anyone's reaction or how they react to things, and expecting them to react a certain way, you're always going to be disappointed. What you can control is how you act and react. And that's really a very big game changer. So I just wanted to kind of highlight something other than beauty and style and really have a real conversation. I would love to hear your comments about therapy. How do you feel about it? Do you think it's an asset to our society? Do you think that it's a crutch? Do you think that it's, something that is not really helpful? Or do you think it's really helpful and more people should be, seeking out self-help books or talking with a therapist or getting on an app that is the talk therapy to help people through these, life-changing events or getting older or just dealing with a bunch of things. I like to talk about this. I think it's very important. I hope that it has enlightened you with these 10 little kind of just prompts and things that were shared from other therapists. And ladies, until my next video, I'll see you later.